So, hello everybody, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about a book that I've just finished quite recently. It's the latest book that I've finished reading and I love it very much. And it is entitled The Last Quarter of the Moon by Chi Zijian. And I'm going to talk to you about why I really love this book. So, yeah, be prepared because this video is gonna be all about me rambling about why I find this book super awesome. Anyway, this book is originally written in Chinese by Chinese author Chi Zijian, and this edition is published by Vintage and it is translated by Holmes into English. And I must say that the English translation is also very good because if you don't have a good translation, then you won't be able to experience the story very well. If you have a really crappy translation, then your reading of the story is not going to be good as well, despite how good the original is. And I think it's really important for me to share that the translation is awesome, and I think the translator deserves some credit for that. So the way I would describe this story is historical fiction slash a family saga slash a slice of life. And so if you are the type of person who really likes to read family drama that spans across multiple generations, then this is probably one of the books that you would like. So a little bit about this group. It is actually a story about a group of Evenki tribes people who lives somewhere in northeastern China, and they actually live very near to the Argun River or the Arguna River. In fact, the original title of this book in Chinese is The Right Bank of Argun, and that's because our characters, the Evenki tribes people, they live at the right side of Argun River. And if you look at the map, you would notice that the left side of the Argun River is actually Russia. So you can see that Argun River, for that particular portion, kind of separates the land between China and Russia. And that detail is going to be one of the quite recurrent pattern that you will see inside this novel. Basically, our characters would consider the right bank, the right side of the Argun River to be the place that they identify with, and the left bank is something that they find really foreign and probably has a little bit of sinister air to it. But because it is something that is foreign to them, so it is not something that they identify with. So the Evenki people are actually one of the minorities that are in China. I'm not sure about any of you out there, but for me, when I first read this story, I actually had no idea who or what the Evenki people was, what their culture is. I basically came into this novel, started reading this novel with basically zero knowledge on what the Evenki culture is, how their lifestyle is like, what their languages are, because I've never heard of their culture before. But the thing is, even though I had no idea, I do find myself really immersed in this story of the book because the writing style is just so immersive. It is so descriptive and it is so vivid that it pretty much pulls you into the story, and it pretty much shows you that despite these people having a totally different culture than me, I can still identify with the basic things that make them human, like things that make them happy or things that make them sad, like the birth of new family members or deaths of people that you love. And those are the basic things that really form the backbone of this story. And I think that is what makes this story really powerful, is that it focuses very much on the things that are really raw and really emotional, and it allows you to identify with the people in this story despite the fact that you have never actually lived in a place that they lived in. So more info on the Evenki people is that they are actually reindeer herders. As you would see in this novel, you would see a lot of reindeers, and there are also a lot of aspects of reindeer herding that they're gonna talk about in here, how it influences their lifestyle. And I think that part is kind of interesting as well, because obviously in Malaysia you don't see any reindeer. But apart from that, another thing that I find really interesting is that you know the Evenki people, they are like nomadic tribes people, so they live in different places. So essentially they have to change their living locations from time to time, and when they move they actually bring their herds of reindeers as well along with them to that new camping site. And the reason why I find that really interesting is because it kind of shows us one of the aspects of their life and their attitude towards the environment, and that is their interaction with nature. And I think for modern people like me who lives in modern city, I don't really have that opportunity to be surrounded by nature as much as I want to. You get surrounded by buildings and artificial things and cars and stuff like that, so you don't really experience nature the way the people in the way the characters in this novel do. The way their interaction with nature in this novel is described is more than just simply, oh, they love nature or they respect it. It's not as simple as that. There's even a layer of magical or supernatural element to it, and I think that is partly due to the fact that this book is actually narrated by one of the characters in this novel, and she kind of has that tendency to do a lot of foreshadowing that may make the story sound a little bit more fantastical or magical, which is something that I like, but it kind of makes her an unreliable narrator as well. But then again, I don't really mind unreliable narrators. They make the story a little bit more flavorful. This novel explores a lot on the relationship between people and nature, and in this book, the way nature acts is that nature can be good. It can be a good force that provides sustenance, provides shelters, and all of those really, really lovely things. But at the same time, nature can also be something that kills people. Basically, a lot of the characters in this book kind of dies because of things that are related to nature, like trees or thunder or the river. So this is kind of like a minor spoiler alert, but yeah, it's a family saga that spans for a long time, so yeah, sure, someone would die. Yeah, big deal. So if you are the kind of person who loves nature and you like to read stories that concerns people who live with nature and people who interact with nature, and I think this book would be a very suitable book for you to read, because I think when it comes to describing people's relationship with nature, this novel does not describe it very superficially. It actually goes really in depth on that, and it also weaves it into the stories of each of these characters and how nature affects their lives. So this book is kind of divided into 4 general sections. So the first section would actually deal with the Evenki tribes people when they are still living their pristine nomadic life in the mountains of northeastern China. So the second portion of this novel, it takes place around the time when the Japanese invaded China. For all of you history buffs out there, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It's around, during 1930s. During the formation of the Manchu War. Basically, we also see how the Evenki tribes people, our characters, interacts with these Japanese invaders. And spoiler alert, this is not a book about patriotism. It's a book about the Evenki people and how they live their lives. And so, yeah, you aren't gonna get some nationalistic stuff, just saying. And it's pretty interesting as well how they interact with the Japanese people. And the third portion of this novel would kind of involves how the Evenki people, after the invasion of the Japanese years later, and how they how these people react to the government's decision to get them to relocate to a more permanent settlement. And so one of the questions that they would have to deal with is whether they would want to continue this nomadic lifestyle, or would they prefer to go for a more modern lifestyle at the more urban areas, instead of just living in the mountainous areas. And we will see how the characters who are still alive at that part of the book, how they what are the decisions that they make and why they make it. And it's a whole new different story as well. And the fourth portion of this novel is kind of a small portion that pretty much just ties up the loose ends of this novel. And so throughout this novel, you would see the Evenki people, our characters, how they react to all of those different things in their lives. Like in the first portion, how they react with, pretty much their environment and the nature that they're living in. And in the second portion, they react with this foreign power who came in. And in the third portion, they react with, how it is going to be like if they were have to change the way they live all this while. And I think those are the stories that are really fascinating. We might not be able to, super relate with all of these things that happening to them, but at the same time, I think, we as people also deal with change, and this book is all about how we react to changes in our lives. And the changes that we experience in our life, it needs not to be exactly the same as the changes that these people do, but it also sheds some light on how certain people react to change. And we can also kind of reflect on ourselves, how we ourselves react to change, whether we react to them poorly or very well, or we can kind of do a little bit of self-assessment on that. And I think this bit of self-reflection is something that is automatically triggered in me when I read this book. That's kind of like one of those experiences that I get when I'm reading this book. And so the next point why I really like this novel is the fact that it has a really large cast. Now, you might have noticed that I've never really mentioned much about the plot of this novel because, well, I wouldn't say that there is actually a main plot that involves a character with a goal. It's not like that kind of a story. It is more like a collection of pieces of life experiences of each of the members in a particular Evenki community. And the stories, the pieces of the lives are actually arranged chronologically in a period of 90 years, and the narrator is actually one of the members of that community. And the narrator is a woman. At the beginning of the story, she's a girl, and at the end of the story, she's a 90-year-old woman. But yeah, when you think of people who actually live in, say, mountainous areas, as in a nomadic tribe, just like the Evenki people in this book, you probably do not imagine much about what their feelings are, what their emotions are, because you may feel that sense of detachment from them. And I think that is kind of normal for us, especially when we refer to people who are at a totally different condition or totally different cultures, totally different societies from us. We may never really think too deeply about what they think inside, what they like, what makes them happy, all of those really trivial things, really little things. But this book really talks a lot about that. Basically, it has a really large cast of character, and all of the characters are really colorful. I'm not going to list down all of the names of the characters in this book, but basically we have the narrator herself, and we also have the narrator's parents, the narrator's siblings, the narrator's neighbor of some sort. Basically, there are like people who live with the narrator in the community, and we have we also have the narrator's uncles and auntie, and after that we're gonna have the narrator's husband. Spoiler: the narrator is going to have two husbands, and we're gonna see the narrator's children. We're gonna see the narrator's nieces and nephews and cousins, and all of these people. They're gonna get involved in this story, in this novel, and their personalities are gonna get explored. We're gonna see a lot of that, and we are going to see a lot of drama, because it is a family saga after all. It is not a family saga without any drama, and so you can kind of think of it as some kind of a reality show-ish kind of a book, except that it takes place at the mountainous area of northeastern China, at a somewhat rural setting without much of those really glamorous stuff. But when it comes to the drama, you're gonna see things like, of course, the basics: births, deaths. You're gonna see people getting sick. You're gonna see a lot of love stories. This is for sure. If you like love stories, you're gonna see a lot of them. You're gonna see love triangles. You're gonna see unrequited love. You're gonna see people fighting for love. You're gonna see people who are bitter because they did not get the love that they want. You're gonna see people who die because of love. If you are that kind of a romantic person, this book has tons of love stuff involving the characters. So I'm not gonna talk too much about that, because it's gonna be too much detail. This book has tons of details, but I think it suffices to say that if you like love stories, or if you like people's drama, this book has it. But at the same time, even though we have all of those things, because this book is narrated by a character in this novel, we're gonna see those events from her point of view. And like I said before, it kind of makes her an unreliable narrator, because she is narrating the story from the point of view of her as a 90-year-old woman. And so she, of course, would know things that would happen afterwards when she's narrating an event. And so, of course, she's gonna do a little bit of some kind of foreshadowing, like telling us how something is gonna happen based on, some sort of signs or premonitions or whatever. That kind of makes this book a little bit more magical than it is. I'm not sure if it is supposed to be, magical in real life, but the way the narrator does that, she kind of makes the lives of these characters as if they're in this as if they're like confined in this one place, in that particular forest, in that mountains. And in this place, all of those magical things, all of those supernatural things actually happen. I'm just gonna mention it right here. We also have shaman characters. Basically, there are shamans in their community as well, and apparently these shamans have some tangible magical power, and if it's according to the story, yeah, their powers do work, and it kind of gets a little bit fascinating to read. So yeah, it's like a little bit of a fantasy book as well. So yeah, it's a historical fiction / family saga / slice of life / a little bit of fantasy, and some drama, a lot of drama. I also would like to point out that this book has really beautiful language, but aside from that, the language style is also very relaxing. And me as a person, I actually have a bit of anxiety from time to time, but when I read this book, I actually feel a bit more relaxed, because it just pulls me in, and it makes me feel like I'm at a totally different world, and I think I really appreciate that when it comes to reading a story, and this book does it very well with its language use, and not to mention the fact that the narration can be quite non-judgmental. Basically, when you're reading this book, even though you're reading the story from the point of view of a character, you don't actually see too much. There are some judgments, but you don't actually see too much judgment. Reading something that is not very, that is not super judgmental, I think it actually has a very positive effect on you, and just as it does on me, you know. It makes me feel relaxed, it makes me feel safe, and I think, you know, I guess that's just the benefits of not being judgmental. It makes everyone feel good and feel safe. And so that's it for this video. I hope that I don't ramble too much. But anyway, I just want to say that I really like this book. If you happen to find this book somewhere, and you know, I would really strongly suggest you to just pretty much get it and read it. It's very, very beautiful and it's awesome. Anyway, for the next video, I am actually currently reading this book by Jeffrey Eugenides, Middlesex. I actually mentioned it in the last video that I did, you know, about my March 2020 planning. But yeah, I have progressed a bit on this book, and I think it's really awesome as well. It's also a family saga, and I am going to continue the series on my thoughts on my books with this novel afterwards. So yeah, I'm excited about that as well, so stay tuned. Anyway, I'll see you all on the next video. I actually have a plan to go to a bookstore this weekend because it kind of coincides with my, you know, paycheck day. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about that. And in the meantime, I hope everyone is doing awesome. Have a great day, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye.